Good evening, everyone. We're just going to give everyone about a minute or so to log in and get comfy and get ready for our chat tonight. Thanks so much for being here. All right. And then while you're logging in, you can feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and where you're listening in from. I've made sure that the comments are turned on so you can use it. All right, we'll just wait a couple more seconds and then we'll get it kicked off. Perfect. All right, let's get started. Good evening and welcome to Book Chat with author Natalie Caña in Milwaukee Public Library. I'm the adult librarian, Beth. I work at the East Branch Library, which is where I'm calling in from this evening. My co-host tonight is Greg Cumley, a special collections and archives librarian at the Central Library. He's kind of hanging out in the background. You can ask him questions if you like. Tonight's conversation is being recorded. MPL will email a recording link to all of you in a few days after the program, which will include all the book titles that we talk about as well. Feel free to use that chat box to interact with each other and to share your own book recommendations, and use the Q&A box to submit your questions for our special guest, Natalie, tonight. As always, we invite everyone to sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our special guest, Natalie Caña. Natalie has been many things: a teacher, a fun-sized to king-size humans, seriously unqualified softball coach, a scaredy-cat Halloween store manager, an Emmy award-winning public TV producer, and more. The one thing she's always been, though, is a writer. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Natalie. We're so excited to have you and to talk about your book, which I have right here, and I hope everyone has either read or is planning to read. How are you tonight?
I am good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. This is like, as you know, this has been waiting years. So
So fun story for everyone. We hosted a romance in-person event at East in like 2019, and Natalie was there to support a bunch of the folks that were there, and you were working on this at the time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Which is so exciting. And then we all went. It was a lot of authors from Canada, actually, and then we took them to the Brewer game. We all got to go, and that seems like a really fun time. And I was like, you get your book out and we'll get you here at the library to make sure that everyone can read it, because you live here in Wisconsin, isn't that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Very
right in
good.
Milwaukee.
Yay. So since you're a Milwaukee person, which is your favorite branch of the library to go to? We need to know.
You know, I always love the downtown library. I think it's just it's huge and it's so beautiful in there. I used to go sometimes when I was still working for Milwaukee Public Television. I would when I was sick of editing something, or I needed to take a break, and if it was a Monday, I would go to the museum, not gonna lie, because it was free. But otherwise I would go stop in the library and just kind of sit and think or check out a book or something. So yeah, I love the downtown one.
It's got that distinguished library feel to it that I just love, because I usually only get to go there for meetings when I'm working, and then here at my library it feels kind of more like an Apple store. It's a very different vibe architecturally speaking.
It is kind of like an Apple store.
It's very sedate and white and crisp and not a lot of stuff, which is fine, but both is good. Right. And I like our art here at East too. Very good. So yeah, tell us a little bit about kind of your road to writing romance. How did that kind of start for you?
Yeah, so I came to romance later. I know a lot of people are 13 and 12 sneaking books from the library or from underneath their mom's bed or whatever. But I came to romance in college. So it was hard. College was hard. I was struggling hardcore. And I went to the university bookstore, and they had they did not have the book that I needed for class, but they did have like a bin of books like for $1. And so I picked up Lisa Kleypa's Mine Till Midnight. And so I had been reading like YA before that. I mean, so I guess it was still romance because it was like paranormal YA romance, right? But that was like my first adult romance. It was historical. It like literally blew my mind.
Yes.
And after that, I mean, because it's Lisa Kleypas, right? And after that, I was hooked, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to write.
That's awesome. So you live in Milwaukee. Have you lived in the area your whole life, or what's kind of your Midwest Wisconsin story?
Yeah, lived here my whole life. My family, so my grandma came to Milwaukee from Puerto Rico when she was 16 to meet my grandfather here. They got married. They settled in Wisconsin because my grandpa had already had some family here. And so, yeah, I was been born and raised, except for a short stint when I was little and we lived in Florida.
Okay.
But I've been in Milwaukee the whole time.
That's awesome. So I have to ask you, you have worn many hats. So you were a teacher. I need to know a little bit more about this Emmy nominated producer role that you had. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so I went to school for broadcasting. And in that time, I worked as an independent producer for Milwaukee Public Television for a program called Adelante. It is a Spanish language, personal or public interest show. And it's mostly in Spanish, but when it's not, there's Spanish subtitles. When it's in Spanish, there's English subtitles, vice versa. And when I was working for that show, there was a specific episode that I had, been one of the producers on, because we all produced different segments for the show. And then there was like a live question and answer type thing. And that specific episode was nominated for an Chicago, like Midwest kind of area Emmy, and it won. So yeah, so that was really cool. The not cool part was that, so like the trophy goes to the show.
Oh.
And then they were like, oh, well, if you want one, it's like $300 and something. And I was like a broke college student, like living at home, mooching off my mom.
You're like,
and I was like, yeah, no, I don't have $300 for that
little
trophy. But then there was a certificate, and then the certificate, before I got it, got water damaged at the station. So I have like zero proof besides my word. It really did happen, I promise.
I 100% believe that's awesome. It's like, come on, work. You could get a couple extra. You could have like shared it.
Right? Like, can't we just like do a custody thing and you get it for a week and I get it for a week?
That would be fair. I would like that. I think we do something like that there's a Benjamin Franklin Award for MPL, and I forget what a couple of us won it, but they've been passing the trophy around to the branches so we can enjoy it. It's like, see, it's not that hard. People are good about it.
Right?
You can come check it out. It's the Benjamin Franklin. He's sitting on like a bench in bronze. It's very
That's
lovely.
awesome.
Oh my gosh. So you were a teacher for quite a while. How has your writing kind of been inspired by your teaching and vice versa?
I think the most is in time, right? And in time, being able to spend writing versus teaching. And this is everybody with a full-time job who's also trying to be an author. I've had to quickly get my process down of what I'm going to do. And I still work on it. It's different for every book, but, to maximize that time, because there isn't tons of extra time when you're trying to write and work full time, especially teaching, because you have to do so much outside of normal hours. So I feel like in that sense, it made me have to be a tighter writer
Mhm.
first round. And when I can't do that, I get grumpy.
Okay.
But I think it's really interesting because with a proposal they can't refuse, there are some parts where, like my coworkers or people who used to be teachers were like, I saw your teacher shining through right here. And I didn't even realize it or think about it, but it's true.
It's like, well, can't help it.
Yeah, it just came out. I don't know.
Mhm. Well, I just love this book so much. I had read part of it when I first got a copy, and then I really like sat with it this past weekend and just like sank into the story. And then I had the audiobook as well, and the narrator is just fantastic. So were you involved in that process at all, or?
Yes. So when it came time to pick a narrator, the publisher was nice enough to send me a list, via my editor and be like, this is kind of who we were thinking. Let us know who you think, like put it, in a list
Mhm.
from highest to lowest of desirability. And then if you have anybody else, we could add that to the list. So the first thing I did was I went and looked at those people's names and then looked on, like Audible and all the
Mhm.
places to find books where they're narrating Latinx story, and
Mhm.
especially looking for them to be speaking Spanish.
Mhm.
Um, because I mean, that's a huge part of the story that's very important. There's
Mhm.
different dialects. Caribbean Spanish is very different from Mexican Spanish, was very different from Spain Spanish and other places in Latin America. So it was important to get
Mhm.
somebody who could do that accent. And so if I couldn't find it, that unfortunately that person was off the list. Then I went into the audiobooks of my fellow Latinx romance
Mhm.
writers and looked at their audiobooks and who they had. And, from there, I made a list, sent it to the publisher, and they chose.
Mhm. Well, I'm just gonna tell everyone listening in tonight, it's really great and was a really fun way, to experience the book over again. And I just loved it so much, and especially the meddling grandpas who are the kind of the heart of this story. And I need to know, like, were some of they're very into like manipulating their grandchildren, pulling pranks, and they live in an assisted living community. And
Mhm.
when it opens, you meet them with Camila, who is getting upset that they switched the coffee out in the in the nursing home. Can you tell everybody, like, kind of set that scene for those who haven't read it? And then are you getting inspiration from life for some of these things, or how did you
Um,
come up with
yeah,
these?
a little bit. So for those who don't know or haven't heard or anything about it, I was one of my grandmother's main caretakers. She never lived in assisted living facility. She was at home until she passed. But she was always getting up to something, and nobody else would ever believe us because she was like so sweet and quiet. And she would just sit there and she didn't talk much. And everybody's like, oh, she's the sweetest thing. But she was sneaky, especially once she couldn't have salt anymore. So she was doing this thing where we had like this salt alternative that was like not, it tasted like salt but it wasn't really salt, so it wouldn't
Mhm.
affect her. And I don't know where she kept finding actual salt from, but
Sorry.
she would switch it out, or she would like hide the other one and like try to hide the real salt, and then like come in the kitchen and she's like, and it's like behind her, and it's like, come on now. So in that sense, she was definitely the inspiration for these kind of meddling grandpas. Even though she wasn't much of a meddler, she kind of let people do what they were gonna do.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, and then I've always just, I saw a long time ago when a meme that was like, I want to be the old person that's always getting in trouble at the old folks home. And I was like, I do want to be that person. I want to be the one that they're always calling, like my niece, like, listen, you need to come get your aunt because she's doing too much. And I just thought that's like something that would have been so fun. So that's more where that inspiration came from.
It really made me remember my grandma who did live in an assisted living facility, and she was pretty feisty. And the one time she took herself on a cab ride to her old house without anybody realizing she had somehow managed to call and pay for her cab. And they were like, what were you expecting to do? Like, you can't go in the house.
Yeah.
And then they had to put like an alarm on her like wheelchair so they would know if she like left. You're like, grandma, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So definitely
Yeah.
spoke home to me.
My great grandpa he was in a nursing home for a bit towards the end of his life. And we would feed him all the time. We would go spend like hours just like playing games with him, talking. And that was one of the things that kind of stuck out to me, is like all the different just like characters that live there. And like they're just so distinct in their personality. And they really were. It was like being in a high school. Like they were sassy and they would talk back, and they were just, it was funny. Yeah. You're just like
the drama.
Yeah, it really was.
And like you did such a great job portraying them as like people. I think a lot of times in romance, we don't get to see older generations like that because it's so focused on the couple. And I really appreciated the community that you created in this story, especially the two families kind of sharing that building and having the distillery and the restaurant. And that was just really lovely. What drew you to the Chicago location for the book?
For me, I wanted a very historically Puerto Rican neighborhood, right? And so in that sense, when you think about Puerto Ricans living in the diaspora, right, you think New York, right? Or you think Chicago. And for me, I'm much more familiar with Chicago. And I just remember every time we would go to Humboldt Park and I would see those arches that are across Division Street, it was just such a beautiful thing. And I felt so like proud and seen and appreciated every time we went there. So that was something that really drew me to Chicago, because I knew what it was like to be there. I didn't live there, but I knew what it was like to see that and be in that neighborhood. And I just wanted to shed light on that, because there's not a lot of places that are like that.
And Chicago really, that neighborhood really becomes its own character in the story too, along with the building. Were you able to do any fun research that you got to do for the book, like distillery tours or food expeditions?
Oh, I definitely so my friend Liz, Liz.
Yeah.
Liz and I did a distillery tour. The idea to make Liam a whiskey distiller actually came when I was traveling in Ireland with my best friend and my cousin. And at that point, I was kind of stuck, because at first Liam had been like a billionaire.
Okay.
And there was like some kind of like vague company that made lots of money that I had no idea what it was yet. And I was like, you know what? No, I don't want billionaire. I'm done with that. I'm over that. So I had to figure out something that Liam could be involved in, that he could be really good at, but he could still be successful, but on a smaller scale. And we happened to go to the Teelings Distillery in Ireland, which was super interesting to me, because it was kind of like a smaller family-owned distillery. It was the first distillery to be able to like open in Dublin in like 100 years, because Jameson wasn't even in Dublin. It just like their old factory.
Okay.
And I went in there and, was going through this tour and taking video and picture of all the things. And I was like, I think I got it. I think this is what he's going to do.
I was really excited about that part too. I enjoy a whiskey every once in a while. And I got to go to Scotland to a distillery on my travels. And it really reminded me of that, especially like the tales that Liam's grandpa Killian granda would tell on the tour. And that was really exciting to hear. And kind of Liam being more of an introvert, not wanting to like talk about stories, but wanting to tell everybody exactly how to distill this whiskey. That was really sweet, and I liked it a lot.
There was one tour that I went on that was very much like that, and you could kind of like I was eating it up, right? Because I love to go, I like dive into the rabbit hole of research for all of the things. But you could just kind of see like all the other people on the tour
like,
were like so that's kind of where that came from. And yeah, he was like talking about the esters and this and that. And I was like, I don't know what he's talking about, but this sounds really good.
Like, keep it going. It's so great. Let's see. So Camila, who's a heroine, she is really wanting to continue her abuela's beloved Puerto Rican restaurant in the book, and it's really made difficult for her by mostly her family's inability to like accept change or to trust her in the change. What kind of inspired that path for your character?
I think with Camila, there was always going to be a family restaurant involved in the book, because this is my homage to my family, right? And my family actually owned the first Puerto Rican restaurant in Milwaukee, bar/restaurant. So I mean, it was gone by the time I was born, but that's something that like the stories are always told still. I remember being sick and being at like a Jewel Osco with my grandma, and like this random man came up to him or to us and was like, you know, I can't believe it's you. Like I haven't been able to find food like yours ever again. And I miss the bar and the restaurant so much. And that stuff happened a lot. So I just thought it was really important to have a restaurant that meant a lot to this family, but also meant a lot to the community. And so with Camila's journey with that, I think most of that came from, children of, I mean, not that Puerto Ricans aren't immigrants, right? We're US citizens, but children of immigrants, children who migrate from a different place to a newer place. There's an expectation there, right? To honor the family's legacy, to be more successful than your parents and keep pushing forward and make their sacrifices worth it and make their hard work worth it. And so I think that's really where Camila's character kind of came in, is she wanted to do that. She wants to do that for her grandmother out of that sense of obligation, but also just out of love. And I mean, there's a lot of different things that happen within families, especially big families with big personalities, that it's not always heartwarming. It's not always all fun. The more personalities you have, the more tension there's going to be. So that was another thing that, I mean, I know personally, I know a lot of other people know that personally. So, and I thought that was a reality that was important to discuss as well.
And it came across really well, and like everyone loves each other, but they definitely have their opinions and they're not always the same. So I'm a total sucker for you have to get married for some romance reasons. So I was just really excited. This is started as like a modern marriage of convenience, which you don't find as often in contemporary, and they don't actually like make it all the way to the altar because they kind of put off the grandpas for like, no, we're not gonna just immediately get married because no one's gonna believe, because they don't like each other. So what kind of led you to create these two like kind of opposing forces?
In one version of the story, they actually did get married and then came back married, and that was a whole thing. But I think for me, there was a moment where I was thinking, Camila is their only daughter, right? She's their only daughter. That's her dad's only time to walk his daughter down the aisle. And and she loves her dad and he loves her. They have their issues, but there's a very strong love there. And I just realized that she would not take that opportunity away from her parents, right? Being their only daughter and being his only daughter. So there was no way that she would do that. So it couldn't go all the way to the marriage of convenience trope. So then I had to think about like, well, what else could they do? Like, of course, we ended up in fake dating, but that didn't seem like enough. So that's kind of where I pushed the engagement angle, that fake engagement.
It was really great. And I was like, oh, these grandpas gotta slow down because they don't get along, and for very good reasons, which we don't need to go into for everyone that wants to read it. But like, it was really fun watching them.
Grandpas don't care. They don't care.
They know better.
You do what we want. We don't care if it doesn't make any sense, and everybody will figure it out and be mad at you. We don't care. You're gonna do it anyway.
Figure it out, or the building's gone.
Yep, exactly.
Let's see. What is one of the weirdest things you've had to research for your book? What's a good rabbit hole you went down?
I did a lot of research about transferring ownership of a restaurant, like owning a restaurant, owning the building versus renting the building. I did a lot of research about that literally I did not really need to do, but I did it anyway. Like the different laws and especially in Illinois. So there was many hours spent doing that for no reason whatsoever. Just for the ending.
Hey, it helped you come up with a wonderful happily ever after. So I think it's time well spent.
Yeah, the rabbit hole. Yeah, somebody said, what a rabbit hole. Exactly. Yeah. I will dive headfirst into the rabbit hole every single time. And then it's like days later and I'm like, oh my God, I was supposed to write a chapter.
It's like anything to avoid the actual task at hand will be okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't like write fiction or books, but like when I was in school, I'd be like, my house was never cleaner or anything and everything to avoid the actual like sitting down and like typing.
I renovated my kitchen this summer while I was supposed to be writing book 2. So I went hardcore.
Yeah, you did. So there is going to be book 2. I'm hoping that it's because there's a bunch of like brothers that I'm kind of like got my eye on from here. So can you tell us what's up next for you?
Yeah. So when I sold book 1, I sold book 2 and 3 at the same time. So we'll definitely get the brothers who aren't actually already married and have kids and stuff. We'll get their stories in books 2 and 3, but I also have I have the entire family tree. Like it's, again, rabbit hole intense. And I have a lot, I have all of the cousins who aren't already married and have their love stories and stuff. I have all their stories planned as well. So I hope one day I will get to write them.
Me too.
But yeah, it's like a saga, a family saga.
I love that. It's my favorite kind of romance. You get every family member is going to get their happily ever after. It's going to be great. Oops, somebody else agrees with me in the chat, which is right. That's amazing. So moving kind of away from this book, is there any media that you've been kind of living for lately, when you're not writing, like things you like to watch or what you've been, we'll talk about your book rec. So like watching or listening to lately.
So I don't do tons of reading when I'm drafting, but or even just listening to audiobooks, but I do binge watch a lot of TV, but I also have really bad anxiety. So I don't like to watch new TV shows. I just rewatch old ones over and over.
Same.
there's just something comforting about it. So I watch like a lot of home renovation type shows. There's one that I like, it's called Help, I Wrecked My House. And it's like literally when people try to like DIY stuff and like horribly mess it up or do the craziest thing, and then the contractor has to come in and fix it. That one. I also really love the show Ghost Adventures.
Ooh,
It's like one of those ghost hunting shows, but
yes.
I, I just love it. I could watch it all the time. I do watch it all the time actually on the streaming service. And then there's like just the comedy shows that I kind of rotate: New Girl, Community, like 30 Rock, all those kind of shows that I just kind of recycle over and over when I just need something on, but don't really want to engage too much.
Those 20-25 minute like comedy shows are worth their weight in gold, in my opinion, because it's like the episodes are just long enough, and they've got like the beats that they hit, and then you're like, okay. Just right.
But I need ones that actually have an ending though, like not ones that were canceled and never finished, because then I just live the disappointment over and over.
Yes.
Like Julie and the Phantoms. I'm still mad that does not have a season 2.
I'm mad about
the shows that have like a nice
like
at the end, and then it can, circle around.
I started watching the X-Files again because my 10-year-old like blew through all of Stranger Things, and I was like, well, if you like that, you might like this show, and she really does. So we've been watching them, and she's like, we're on season 3, and she's like, when are they gonna start dating? I was like, oh honey.
Yeah.
Like we'll let you wait and see.
Yeah, you know what? Just keep watching.
Don't worry about it. I was like, uh-oh, do we have a little baby romance reader? I don't know. We'll see. Very cool. And then we always have to ask, do you have like a fun library memory from when you were younger or even recently that you'd like to share with everyone, or something that has impacted your life from the library?
I think for me, I mean, if we're talking about like fun times at the library, I think the most fun times I ever had at the library were in college. Not much studying got done, but there was like I went to Marquette University, and there's the bridge that connected the 2 libraries, and then there was like a coffee shop and like all the chairs in the middle, and we would always just like randomly find our friends all the time there, and then like I barely ever got any studying done there, but it was good times, and it was building a community, right? But then, when I needed to seriously study, it was to the law library.
Yeah.
Oh, Marquette, yes.
I went to Marquette for my graduate program, and I would go down into the sub-level of the old building. Like there was an old defunct fireplace down there, and that's where I would camp with like, oh, this is really quiet. It's good. But yeah, that bridge was so good.
we used to call it like Club Rainer, because nobody ever studied there. We just went there to socialize and talk.
It was so fun. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I'm gonna have Greg go ahead and pull up our slides again. We're gonna do our book recs. And then I just want to remind everyone, if you do have questions for Natalie, to go ahead and put those in the Q&A, and we will get to those after we run through some book recommendations. So when I invited Natalie, we were very clearly going to talk about, romance, and we are also talking about Hispanic Heritage Month this month. So all of our recommendations will be by authors of Latin heritage. So Natalie, I'm going to throw it over to you if you want to run through your recommendations.
Yeah. So I remember, spoiler, a lot of these authors are friends, and, we've had chats and meetups and things like that virtually. And I remember the first time that I heard Angelina talking about this story that she was working on, and her connection to it, and her love for this story was just so infectious that I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to read this. And now you know, After Hours on Milagro Street is out, and you still just feel all of that love and that connection that she has, that personal connection to this story, in such a beautiful way on like every page. And then of course, Angelina is so amazing at writing those high heat, steamy scenes, right? They're just like chef's kiss. So if you want something that is actually like a story that is fiction, but also based in real life kind of situations that have happened in the Midwest, you love high heat with a little bit of magical realism thrown in, then After Hours on Milagro Street is definitely something that you want to pick up. A Caribbean Heiress in Paris. Literally everything that Adriana does is genius. Like everything that she does. This is her first historical, and it's everything that you would expect or want in a historical. You know, you have like this plucky heroine who's trying to make it in a world that does not want her to succeed. You have that swoon-worthy hero who is supporting her through that whole thing. A cast of larger than life characters that surround them and help them through it. And the best part is that there's 2 more books. The other Leonas are getting their books as well. It's just like, I mean, the beautiful dresses, Paris, the backdrop. I mean, it's everything that you want when you pick up a historical romance. Second Chance at Rancho Lindo by Sabrina Sol. It comes out in November. God, hot cowboys. I feel like that's all I should have to say is hot cowboy with hot brothers. Come on. He is back home after having left to join the military, and he finds that the woman that he practically ghosted many years ago is firmly entrenched in his family's ranch, and he wants a second chance with her and with his family. So put that on your radars, y'all. Pick that one up. And then the last one we have, West Side Love Story. When I wrote you earlier, I said this, I've said it before, I'll say it again, time and time again. Priscilla is a master at writing families. She does it so well. All the dynamics, from the frustrating and the heartwarming, the Capuletas and their whole story is just so good. The way that they believe in second chances and bringing in all this youth, and it's mariachi, an all-women mariachi band, a retelling of the West Side Story with a happy ending. I mean, what else could you want, right?
So I've read 3 of the 4. So I have the Sabrina Sol one, an early copy, and I've asked the library if they will make sure we get copies, so stay tuned. But we have the other 3, and yeah, you're right, they're just awesome books, and you can't go wrong with any of those, so read them all. All right, Greg, you want to go to your slide?
Yeah, I can remember you recommended A Caribbean Harris, I think the last time that we did this, so I automatically recognized it.
Yeah, it's got that whiskey angle too, so if you liked that in Natalie's book, that's a great one to jump to next after you've read Natalie's.
Well, I struggled with my book recommendations this time. Having a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old doesn't leave a whole lot of time for reading, so I picked some oldies but goodies. Mine are not romances, because sadly I don't read very much fiction. But here's my book recommendations anyway. The Fifth Son by Camila Townsend. It's really a new way to look at the history of the Aztecs. It comes at a different angle in that it is the history told by the Aztecs and their descendants from meticulous research into the Nahuatl language. They were using Latin script to write their language down. And so I think they learned it from the monks and priests, the Latin script in English, and then they transform that into their own histories. So it really is a cool way and a different lens to kind of look at Aztec history and colonization, rather from their perspective rather than the Spanish. It's good. I would recommend it before you travel to Mexico City, because you will learn an awful lot about it before you go to the museums there. The next one, The Oregon Trail, A New American Journey. Really cool one. These two guys, yeah, I think they did it in 2002 or something like that. They literally got a wagon and 2 donkeys and traveled as much as the Oregon Trail as they possibly could in like our new age, right? So large parts of it are still intact through the West, especially like Nebraska and Wyoming. But they went like the full way from Missouri to up to Oregon. Really cool. Just kind of, I don't know, kind of like a new way to look at kind of what maybe people experienced back then from someone who tried to do it in modern times. So yay, that's mine.
Awesome. All right. So these are my 3, and I only picked, I guess, Next Year in Havana it's got romantic elements in it. It's not, I would say, it's more historical fiction. And it's really great. And if you like the first one, the series continues following the same family throughout different time periods. So it starts in the modern age, and the woman travels to learn about her grandmother in Havana, and they learn secret family secrets and all sorts of intrigue. And it's like that 50s and 60s setting. So it's a dual timeline, and it's just absolutely stunning. And really a great one if you want to do some armchair traveling if you're not able to go anywhere, which I quite enjoy. So that's Next Year in Havana by Chanel Clayton. She also wrote this really great romance paperback series. I think it's called The Flying Aces. It's about like fighter pilots, and that was really good too. And then one of my favorites is You Had Me at Hola by Alexis Daria, and this features 2 soap opera stars who are very famous, and they've never worked together, and then they get to work together on a new show, and they have to kind of battle their feelings and try to be professional on set, but also are kind of falling in love at the same time. And this is another one that I do recommend the audio, because it was just a really awesome experience, and there's 2 narrators, and it was really great. And then Woman of Light, I actually pulled this off of Lovedravel Books website as one that I want to read. It's again, a multi-generational storyline that takes place in Colorado, and it has kind of this mystery behind it. There's more family secrets and survival, and women with a lot of power, but also who are just trying to make it. And it just sounds really stunning and complex. And it says it's supposed to be like an old Western, yet with a new fresh spin on it. So that's a newer one, and I have it on hold now, so I can actually read it. All right, and then go ahead, Greg, you can go to the next one. So I'm sad that our friends Valeria and Barbara were not able to join us tonight, but they did send me 2 book recommendations to share. They're very busy doing a lot of events for Hispanic Heritage Month, but if you would like, they have an online book front that you can shop through, and they sell all sorts of amazing books. They live here in Milwaukee, and they grew up on the South Side, and they spend their time running Lovedravel Books, and then Barbie the Book Fairy, which is their sister organization, which helps put free books in all the little free libraries throughout Milwaukee. We had them on our book chat last year, and we can drop the link so you can watch that YouTube program at your leisure. But they recommend Chica Why Not? How to Live with Intention and Manifest a Life That Loves You Back. And I think the title is pretty self-explanatory, but it sounds like a fun and fresh self-help book that will kind of get you on the right path if you need a little guidance. And then perfect for the upcoming like spooky season, they recommended Lobizona, which is about werewolves. And I guess is more YA, but is quite spooky, so do watch yourself with that one, but it sounds fantastic.
I have it right back there.
Do you? Have you read it?
I have not read it yet. I just got it actually because I've been hearing a lot about it being really good. So that I think I have that, and I mean, if you don't mind, I'm just
Yeah, go for it.
and here's another one for spooky season. Our
Ooh.
Shadows Have Claws.
Ooh,
15 Latin American monster stories
that's awesome.
by a bunch of different Latinx YA authors. So that's another one if you're looking for something a little bit more spooky for spooky season.
And I love those anthologies because it's a great way to introduce yourself to many different authors and kind of find the ones that you're like, yes, I want to put more of their work on hold. Those are great gifts, especially if you have younger people in your life and you're like, I don't really know what they're into, but they're likely to find something that they like within the book. So thank you. I did not know about that one. I love monster romances. All right. And then Greg, if you want to go to the next slide. So we're so thrilled to let you know that we have I think it's 2 sets of passes, or is it 4? What did I say? We have 4 pairs of passes that we can give away tonight. And those passes will get you free tickets to go to one of the Cine Sin Fronteras screenings over the next couple of weeks. The Selena one is on the 23rd, and these are in-person events at the Oriental Theater. So if you are from the area and are able to attend one of these, if you could just send Greg and I a message with you can send a private message with your, yes, I'm interested, and we will raffle them away and we'll email you if you win. So that's pretty exciting. The Oriental got a big, massive overhaul. So if you haven't been to the theater recently, it's got an updated sound system and it's really great and got really good popcorn. And Milwaukee Film is one of our awesome community partners that we're so grateful to have. So yeah, again, if you're able and want to, just let Greg and I know, and we will see if we can hook you up with some free tickets. All right, and then next slide. And then up next, we're going to take a month off for October, but on Tuesday, November 8th, we'll welcome special guest Juno Black, who's actually an author duo. They write cozy mysteries that have animals as the main characters, and they're also going to be talking about their writing process and how NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, has inspired their work. So we will invite them here on November 8th. It'll be virtual, and Greg is dropping the registration link for that in the chat, and we will also include it in our follow-up email. All right.
So while we wait, I think there was a couple questions.
Yeah.
So can you talk more about the food? Do you enjoy cooking like the main character? And have you tried to make any of the recipes, especially the ones with whiskey that are described in your book?
No. No to those things. Like I spoke before, my family owned and operated a restaurant. We're a family of really good cooks, like all of us. And so I guess I had intentions of trying the recipes, but just life and everything kind of got in the way. So I just kind of went with instinct and said, what flavors would be good with this. What I did try, just to make sure it was actually possible, was I did make the limbers, the tamarindo limbers with the whiskey in them, because I wasn't sure if they would actually freeze in real life or not to like make a popsicle. So I did try those. But yeah, they worked. They were a bit more like push pop kind of consistency, but then again, I probably went pretty hard with the whiskey. So but yeah, the other recipes I did not try. I don't like when we cook. That's the thing, is when we cook in my family, and I'm sure in a lot of other families that are passing down those cultural dishes, it's never like a written down recipe where you have a cup of this and a tablespoon of that. That's not how it works. It's put a little bit of this, put a little bit of that. You know, you put the water until the spoon stands up, and then it's a lot of things like that. So there would even, just to share the recipe, there would be like no possible way it would not work.
All right. Was there any other questions, Greg?
Yeah, yeah. And then the last one is what authors have influenced you as a writer?
As a writer, one of the first books that I read that was written by, I mean, not like the classics, right? The people that write in Spanish in the classics, but I read The Dirty Girl Social Club by Alicia Valdez Rodriguez a long time ago, probably before I should even have read it. And it was a chick lit, right, book written about a group of Latinas who were friends and their life. And it was funny, and it had the culture, and it had the Spanish, and it had all the stuff that I wanted to read. And that is kind of what has stuck with me as I've been on my writing journey, is writing the kind of books that I want to read, and that I want to have more books that represent people like me. Another person who really influenced my writing, especially like in the romance world, is Kristen Higgins. I think she just, especially like her earlier, more rom-com stuff, just did such a great job of mixing the humor with the heart, with the sadness, with all that. She just did it so seamlessly. I mean, she still does, like, just in such a flawless way that those were some of the books that I really studied and kind of broke apart, and looking at what made it work and how could I incorporate that into my writing. And of course, all my fellow BIPOC authors, their work inspires me and influences me all the time, because I'm so in awe of their talent and the things they do. So I mean, there's tons of authors that have influenced me.
It's a great list. Let's see. Amy would like to know, can you give us a sneak peek of who will be featured in your future books?
Yeah, so in the next two books, one book follows Camila's oldest brother, Saint, and the other book follows her youngest older brother, Leo, because the twins are married. So I can't give away too much, but those will be the heroes of books 2 and 3.
Awesome. I was very intrigued by Saint just from a proposal they can't refuse, so that makes me very happy to hear.
Saint is a pain in the butt, honestly. He's so difficult. He's more difficult than Liam.
He seems like kind of a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, definitely. He's he made my life very difficult for months.
All right. Well, as we wrap up here, can you let everyone know where they can keep up with you, or if you have a newsletter, or how they can find you online?
I am supposed to have a newsletter, but let's be honest, I do not. Okay. The best place to keep up with me would be on Instagram. I like all my social is linked in my website, and I saw that he posted that before. I'm not really active anywhere else really besides Instagram and kind of TikTok. But I do hope to like actually have a newsletter that's quarterly, at least for the beginning, but that's all in the works now that I'm not teaching full time.
Yay. Yeah, don't worry, everyone. We'll send you all that information in our follow-up email, which we'll usually send out a couple days after we get everything up on YouTube. So any parting words, Natalie? Just so happy you were here with us tonight. So thank you.
Same. I'm excited to be here. I am so happy that you invited me, and just everybody out there, use your local library.
Awesome. And we're
Yeah.
going to get you in for an in-person event one of these times coming up now that everything's a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. And then for everyone listening, we hope to see you in November. Otherwise, keep up with us at mpl.org. There's a variety of other great events going on, especially for Hispanic Heritage Month. And we'll be in touch with you with the link in the recording in just a couple of days. Have a great night. And Natalie, hope to see you soon.
Yep, same. Bye all.
Yep. Bye, everyone.